Hi, welcome back to the Idaho 4 Bryan Kohberger case. Today we're going to be looking at the most recent news with what's gone on, ranging from possible DNA evidence being planted to make Kohberger look like the guilty one. Take a look at that article, as well as some possible alibi which could prove his innocence. Then in addition, or more so in contrast to that, some kind of witness report from classmates from the university who saw a different side, a behavioural change within Kohberger himself before the crime took place. So we're going to go through each article today. We're going to read through them, analyse if necessary, and I can give you my thoughts as well. As we do go out throughout this video, feel free to share your thoughts in the live chat box on the right hand side. With regards to last night's video, there will be a link down below in the pinned comment section for you to check it out if you need to catch up, okay? What we are going to do first of all, though, is look back at the comments of last night's video to answer any questions, to clear up any additional stuff, and then we can go from there and focus on the Idaho 4 case. It shouldn't take too long, and it will allow as well people to join on in so we're all on time, okay? So without further ado, let's head on right now. So I'll just arrange the comments newest. There's a couple, but it won't take too long. Got Cleo there. Jarvis, I can't stand small communities because they have secrets and they don't want nobody telling about it. But obviously I know Arizona, little secret. If you disrespect them, it's boots off. I know how they're and I know how they work. It's sad, it's disgusting. So I'm going to go disrespect them everything I can. So my boots are staying gone. Right, I don't know what he's on about. Badger, you have no clue, and by the looks of your line of comments, you could have an issue. Cat loves ASMR. Someone needs tons of attention, don't you? What a drag with all the post to get attention. So, with regards to Jarvis, I personally don't know what he's going on about, but just as a heads up, Jarvis has been around for some time. I think he originated from the Kenny Veach case community, and he's followed ever since, so that's good of him. Just to feel a little bit of context, okay? What else? We have to disrespect, is Dylan in is Utah for Arizona, we have to disrespect their correct, so our boots are staying on, our boots on you, okay. Their little secret is their code, if you disrespect them, it's boots off. So there's a lot of boots going on and off. Maybe you're in a shoe shop, maybe you're trying different shoe sizes. We are on Dylan Round's side. Now we're going to finish help Dylan Round's farm. We're not going to pick up. Boots staying gone. Boots staying gone. We're going here with the farm. Our boots are going to stay on. Our boots are going to stay on. Farm boots are going to stay on. We love you, Dylan Rounds. Build a farm. The farm go Dylan Rounds. We spit on hitchhikers because we know better. We don't like to create. Our boots are staying gone. That's right, go Dylan Rounds, go Dylan Rounds, go Dylan Rounds. We make sure we spit, our boots are staying gone, thank you. Right, I don't know what just went on there, okay? But Jarvis, thanks for leaving multiple comments. I guess in some way it probably helps the video, I think. Tasha T, nice Resident Evil reference, you're welcome. I've noticed quite a few people over time like Resident Evil, more so gamer girls. They seem to prefer Resident Evil. Don't know why, but I guess that's just a trend. I'm not really interested in Resident Evil. The dark reality for me is every single game title I've ever enjoyed has gone downhill because of the toxic RPG trend, shoving in RPG mechanics into non-RPG games. There was a whole reason for different genres of games in the past, categories. That's been lost with time, and I detest how humans out there support it, and it just leads to it all going downhill. So I'm kind of screwed when it comes to trying to enjoy games because what good games are there anymore, right? We got Mike, hit the like button. Shout out to Mike, good individual from the looks of it up to now. And shout out to him for watching the videos, good. Clayton, all you do is say something about her and you know that you are doing it, so just stop saying anything about her and get off the air. How about you get off the channel? Oh wait, no, you keep crawling back. Never mind. Robert, alternative perceptions are a whatever that is. Badger Buster has always been a problem. Right. Oh, Jarvis again. Go Dylan Rounds. We love you. We have your back, Dylan Rounds. Get a big shout out to our boy Warlike Raf. He works hard to help out this case. We love you too, buddy. So besides Jarvis having some very random comments, he did give a shout out, so that's good of him. Appreciate it. Cleo wants balls, the feather, and the whip all at once. Okay, interesting. Just Jen. Oh no, well, I meant the thumbnail was unappealing from the video you got the picture from. I'm actually Jaybird, always listening daily. Should keep it all just Jen. There's so much nonsense that comes with the following Dylan's story. Ty Corbin was criticising, talking crap for no reason about Warlike Raf's videos. But yeah, I understood your original comment, Jen. So it's all fine. Shout out to Jen. Whatever. Yep, understood your comment previously. I just wanted to add on my additional thoughts so it's balanced. Okay. Son, hello Raf. Ignore the senseless criticism. I like your channel format. No mods and no drama. You're intelligent, well-spoken, concise and clear. Thanks. You're welcome. And shout out to Son as well. Good person. And yeah, what they say. It's good. And then Legion. Ha ha ha. Ignore those Muppets. They're always stirring up drama. Ha 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 ha. Bratapus is a whiny biatch. Ha ha ha. Jimmy is a loser. And Skidmark needs to take those rotten things off his chinless head. Ha 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 ha. Okay, there we go. So that's it for the comments. Okay, kind of concise, which is good. Now, if you have just suddenly joined or you're joining a bit late, don't worry, it's fine. You've not really missed anything. What we are going to transition on to now is the main part of this video, hence the title. We're going to look at Idaho 4, Bryan Kohberger, catch up with the latest news and go from there, okay? Here we are with the first article. It reads, Idaho college killings. Prosecutors dispute DNA could have been planted at the murder scene. DNA could have been planted. So I guess we're assuming the DNA of Kohberger planted at the scene, which would be the knife sheath, correct? Well, let's just read and see what it's got to say, because we've got to take into consideration what about the DNA of the 3 other unknown males? Were they responsible for this supposed outcome? Who knows? Let's read. Idaho prosecutors responded to a suggestion from the defense that suspect Bryan Kohberger's DNA could have been planted at the scene of last year's crime scene, saying it does not support one of their requests for additional discovery. Right. In previous court filings, lawyers for Kohberger asked for more information on the genealogical analysis used to zero in on the suspect, attempting to cast doubt on the strength of investigators' evidence and whether it pointed irrefutably to just their client. The defense lawyer even questioned the investigators objectively. The Latah County prosecutor leading the case against Kohberger said in court filings Monday that none of the defense's arguments hold water as reasons to share the additional information, so not good enough. In quotes, the state is at a loss as to how that theory supports a claim that the IgG information is material to the preparation of his defense, they wrote. Investigative genetic genealogy helped law enforcement eventually link Kohberger to the crime scene after a more common DNA criminal profiling method called a short tandem repeat analysis first found no match with the DNA left at the crime scene. Prosecutors said the profile used in their IgG was informed by the same DNA as the STR analysis they performed, and they're already handing over the information related to the STR analysis in discovery. In quotes, if defendant wishes to explore the theory that his DNA was planted on the K-bar knife sheath, he is free to do so, but the family tree created by the FBI has no relevance to that theory, the prosecution wrote. Right. Kohberger's attorney said last month they should get additional discovery on the genealogical family tree, which helped lead authorities to their client. The defense said in a June filing that Kohberger's DNA could have been planted, put in the K-bar sheath by someone other than him, by someone throughout the investigation, for instance, which spanned hundreds of members of law enforcement and apparently at least one lab the state refuses to name. So what are they suggesting here? That possibilities it was planted there afterwards when authorities or some higher-ups got there? Is that the way it's going here? Or the possibilities of someone from like the university or within the area did it to try and pin the blame on Kohberger? Is it more one-sided here? Sounds like it. Anyway, the IGG process was like a lineup where the government was already aware of who they wanted to target, they said, pointing to 3 additional males. True. DNA, they say, were found in and around the scene after the killings, and added that precisely how the police came to believe they had identified the suspect's car as the kind Kohberger drove is still unknown. The defence is to guess whether the state focused its investigation on Mr. Kohberger via a bizarrely complex DNA tree experiment or through its faulty identification of the vehicle involved in the case, they wrote in the June filing. In their filing Monday, the prosecution said that even if Kohberger's team wants to go down that road and claim that process was rigged, it would be an irrelevant argument because they are not planning to present the genetic genealogy information at trial. Prosecution said that IgG analysis was used to point them in the right direction, but is a separate process from the ultimate STR DNA profile, and they are not planning on using the IgG at trial. Prosecution also noted they have already handed over information related to the STR analysis. The 2 analyses are distinct. They say the IgG was used to develop a lead, not to demonstrate substantive evidence of guilt. Whilst the STR analysis is substantive evidence the state intends to use at trial to prove its accusations against Kohberger, the prosecutor writes. They include an affidavit from the Idaho State Police Forensic Services laboratory manager who notes the STR data and the data used in investigative genetic genealogy cannot be directly compared. Because they don't plan to use the IgG analysis at trial, the prosecution argued it wasn't relevant information to disclose. Anyone involved with these analyses wouldn't constitute a prosecution witness, thus making that defense argument inapplicable, they said. The IgG information is neither exculpatory nor material to guilt or punishment. The family tree built by the FBI merely pointed law enforcement to defendant, and law enforcement followed that lead to develop the substantive evidence of guilt that was used for his arrest and that will be used at trial, the prosecution writes. Okay. Quite a bit of text here. Responding to a June defence expert declaration in support of further discovery on the DNA analysis, the prosecution says that expert, who is also an attorney, should not hijack the court's role in determining evidence, relevance and admissibility. Adding their declaration was a poorly disguised legal brief by a lawyer who was not on the case. Prosecutors allege that in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, Kohberger... Oh yeah, so we've heard all that before. Yeah, after a 6-week hunt, police zeroed in Kohberger as a suspect, saying they tracked his white Hyundai Elantra, cell phone signal data within the area, and recovering that authorities said that was DNA on the sheath. Yep. That DNA evidence taken from the knife sheath at the crime scene showed a statistical match. Yep. Kohberger's attorneys pushed back on that analysis in several court filings. Statistically, probability is not an absolute, pointing to that they could total lack of DNA evidence, right? Kohberger, arrested. Yeah, so that's pretty much it there. So it's more like suggesting the possibility, not enough evidence from the looks of it to really zero in on it being rigged and zero in on it being by somebody else. But, the question lies, if it really was the case somehow, who would be responsible? So the next article we look at, it could provide, a bit more insight to Kohberger as for before the crime took place. I don't know if it will suggest any possible other suspects or people involved that could link to this whole theory idea of evidence being planted or so, but we'll get to that very shortly. What I do want to do is just go off on a slight, like a slight theory to try and make sense and understand the possibilities, okay? So it was the defense team of Kohberger. Obviously, thinking of ways maybe to wiggle their way out and prove his innocence in some way or another. Example being a setup. It wouldn't be the first time something like this has happened in the past, just in general, where whichever country or state, whatever. Sometimes, yeah, there could be a setup. Sometimes you could be linked to a crime and the scene of the crime, but you've played no role at all whatsoever. Your DNA matches and it's from over there, and you think, well, how does my DNA go from here to way over there? Well, that's with the assistance of somebody else that's trying to pin the blame on you in the first place, right? But you got to look at it two ways. There would be, if that really was the case, that for some reason someone planted DNA from Kohberger at the scene of the crime to make it look like he was the one completely responsible and only responsible, there'd be two motives that come out of that, right? One motive being whoever it was or group, depending how many people responsible, what is their motive for pinning the blame on Kohberger, right? If that was the case, what would be the point there? The second motive, okay, would be, besides, planting the evidence of someone at scene of the crime, I assume they're also the ones to have committed the crime in the first place. So what was their motive for taking those people out, those students, and then what was the motive for putting the blame onto Kohberger, setting it all up, right? Has something like this happened before? Most definitely. It's happened before elsewhere at other times and can happen most definitely in the future too. So it's like a two-way motive, right? You look at the first motive of why would Bryan Kohberger be targeted? If we're basing it on the possibility, basing it on the theory that Kohberger is innocent, right? I'm not saying he is 100%, but I'm just saying as a possibility. If there was any more twists and turns within the case, I just wanted to highlight it now. Hopefully you understand, okay? So you got an individual or group that are pinning the blame on Kohberger. Is there some kind of grudge what a person has against Kohberger? A grudge, a disagreement, jealousy, anger, frustration, revenge? You could think that, right? You don't like someone, you want them to suffer. But it does make you think in a way, right? Providing the person that set supposedly Kohberger up, they would also be the one to commit the crime by taking other people out at the same time, right? Well, if they were getting revenge on Kohberger and they didn't like him, then why didn't they just go after Kohberger and physically take him out, as they did with, the students in that house? If you're already going to commit a crime and take someone out, then you might as well follow that up by taking the other individual out, Kohberger, if it is a form of revenge, a form of hatred, anger towards people, right? Why only do it to one party and not the other? Is it just simply down to one is easier to reach compared to the other? Makes you think, right? Is it because they feel that death only goes so far in terms of revenge and suffering? Watching someone, alive, going through all of it, having to witness it, having to experience it, be questioned continuously, have things stripped away from them so they haven't got as much in life. It's like a slow form of torture in a way. It can wear you down physically and more so mentally. Is that what the supposed aim was in getting revenge on Kohberger and watching him suffer in the long run? But as for the students, that was more of a senseless attack, or there was another motive for it? You get what I'm saying? If there's an individual that wants to make sure somebody suffers a lot and is pinned to the crime itself has to be serious enough in the first place for that person who's been pinned, blamed, suffers greatly due to the severity of a crime committed. You put two and two together, and then it goes from there in terms of the questioning, in terms of being arrested, apprehended, things being taken away, possibly put on criminal record, etc., etc. Long-term effects, locked away, of course, and then society itself turning their backs on Kohberger in that sense. If ever released down the line for whatever reason, can he get back to his position at the university? Probably not even allowed to go anywhere near it. So his identity or what he's worked for has been taken, and what does he have now? Not much. So down the line, long-term suffering. As for the individual responsible for putting the blame on Kohberger, they're benefiting, right? Because on top of seeing people suffer, on top of seeing, successfully committing a form of revenge, they themselves are still walking free, walking about, not been arrested, not been questioned, nothing. So it's worked out for them, right? That's kind of like the motive and the style there. As for targeting someone like Kohberger and how they do it for the best term of revenge. So it's practical and effective and satisfying to them, let's just say, right? Could you suggest that maybe it's a student from the university or a former student, somebody that was in the presence of Kohberger at one point in the past, negative experience or one of many? It led to hate building up towards the individual. They wanted that form of revenge. They wanted to finally have that power over Bryan instead of the other way around. Kind of like if you are at university and you got the lecturers, the teachers and stuff who are telling you and making you learn. It needs to be the other way around. I mean, Bryan Kohberger himself, as people said, his personality or behaviour did start changing and some of it deteriorating with time. Could any of that and some of his questionable actions or supposed questionable actions, like following a female to a car or something in an awkward way, could any of that of Bryan Kohberger's own doing have triggered someone to get revenge in that sense? Is it like a long-term grudge or a short-term snap? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. As said, and I'll just reiterate once again, this is all based on a theory, okay? Theorizing, thoughts and ideas, not true facts, okay? Not yet, at least. So I've looked at that area there, the reason, the motive, the first stage. The second stage, why would whoever target those students? Well, when we looked at Kohberger individually, it was maybe, it ties on with the social media account activity, looking online, looking at certain pages, maybe Instagram or something, of some of the victims earlier on before it actually took place. Has it got anything to do with rejection? Has it got anything to do with feeling jealous of some sort? Was Kohberger in the presence of those students at any point in the university? Any negative encounters? Any attitude problems? And it's like, that's rude, disrespectful, how dare you? I will show you a form of respect, and then goes to the extreme, snaps and does what he did, right? That's kind of like what we're looking at there. But if we put that aside for now, and we're still tying it in with the theory of Kohberger being set up, one of the motives, as said, could be the individual or individuals did what they did to those students because they had to create a pretty severe, pretty serious, bad crime scene, set a crime scene, do very bad stuff. So it's taken serious, and the repercussions and consequences are also just as serious and damaging. And whoever goes through that probably won't be living a normal life again. Obviously, right? But if someone is caught up in it all, who's innocent, but they go through those consequences, it's not fair for them and they will suffer greatly. So that's, as I said, one of the motives. Like another motive for targeting that group of people, is it because it's a former student or a current student at the time that may have interacted with, like, put aside one of the boyfriends or the boyfriend, the male, the three women, any interactions, experiences back then, a form of rejection, a form of being disrespected, so they decided to take it upon themselves, which you'd assume a male, and retaliated back physically in an unnecessary way, and then thought at the same time, well, I've got my revenge on these people, didn't anticipate to come across that guy who was stopping there the night, but had to be done as well, so everyone was kept silent, and then thought, right, well, I could pin the blame onto Kohberger. I might as well, because I don't like him. But this is the thing, right? Two sets of motives, one follows before the other. That's what I would say, at least. But then again, you think about it a different way, it doesn't really matter what order. I guess it just depends how you look at yourself. So, you know, if you're, whoever you are, if you're going to that place, that house, to take those individuals out and get revenge there for a certain motive, you got to have an item with you in the first place, like the K-bar knife, which would be in the K-bar sheath, right? That belongs to Kohberger. So you'd have to go to Kohberger's house, I'd assume, that's where he kept it. I don't think Kohberger would carry it around with him. You'd get in trouble, right? Especially if you're on university campus ground and stuff. So someone would have to have gone to Kohberger's place of living or so, get hold of the knife and sheath, then take it down to the student's house and then do what they did, and then leave the sheath behind. If that really was the case, the person would have had to have been wearing gloves, right? Wearing gloves in order to get hold of the knife and the knife sheath without leaving their DNA upon it itself, and preserving the original DNA from Kohberger whenever Kohberger last touched and used it, transporting it down wearing gloves, going to the house, and then following through with the axe. Could that all link into why a singular glove was found outside of the house near to the window, which showed that there was DNA of another male who it belonged to, an unknown male? You get what I'm saying? If you're going to transport something and you don't want to leave DNA upon it, you don't want to ruin or contaminate it, you're going to be wearing gloves, right? From point A to point B. Now, once they got to point B and they finished off, when they were leaving, did they take a glove off accidentally? Did one of the gloves fall out the person's pocket, hence why it was left behind? Could you suggest that the glove that was found at the scene of the crime, belonging to another male, was the one truly responsible for the death of the students, as well as setting up Kohberger? You get what I'm saying? Just one way of looking at it, how you can tie things together. Is there any other ways around it? I mean, you could suggest that maybe Kohberger was responsible, did play a part, but maybe wasn't alone during the act, that other guys were present as well. Because we've still got to acknowledge that there was 3 separate unknown males within the house, the area, okay, at the time, as DNA was left behind, but it couldn't be traced back to identify who those males were. And as you heard me previously question the possibilities around it, you know, are those males, you know, were those males present at the time when it took place? Were they there earlier, before it happened, or did they arrive later? You know, what time scale? It's not really been explained, nor I don't think it can be unless there's a twist and turn later down the line. But is there an alternative theory that Kohberger was with other people when it happened? You know, like a group of them? If that really was the case, why would Kohberger keep quiet then and not drag anyone else down if he's the only one that, you know, suffers? Wouldn't you take other people down with you? Or is there some kind of loyalty? I said, only theories, that's all. I'm sure there'll be resistance in the comment section, the chat, but I'm just basing it off my thoughts, my ideas, okay? Now, what we are going to transition on to next will be the second article, which is to do with like witnesses, students in the class, in the presence of Kohberger, I believe, recalling what they saw, how Kohberger was behaving at the time before the crime took place. Let's take a look at that and see if it fills in any gaps. So the title of this article reads, Bryan Kohberger confronted by students in class he taught over grades week before the Idaho murders. Wow. It says, is this a subtitle? Then shortly after the murders of 4 University of Idaho students in the early morning hours of November 13th, Bryan Kohberger exhibited some notable changes, says a former student. Oh, a former student. Okay. Let's see what this is all about. Does it reveal anything? Group of students confronted Bryan Kohberger during a classroom debate a few weeks before the event took place. One of the students, Hayden Stinchfield, says on the King Road Killings podcast that this all happened after the class taught by Kohberger had its midterm examination sometime around the end of September to the start of October. In quotes, most people just sort of got the vibe from him that he was grading us a little too harshly, says Stinchfield. Okay. Now, what was this debate, or what was going on? What was being taught? Anything related to crime? So Stinchfield and his fellow Washington State University undergraduate students spent an entire class debating their grades with Kohberger. Oh, okay. In quotes, we had a midterm exam that a lot of people thought was graded unfairly. So we as a class had like a day where we went in and we were all essentially allowed to just like debate him about our grades and try and like earn points back, Stinchfield says. But it was a thing where he argued back. Right, so from the looks of it, Kohberger already not really being in a good mood, people coming on in of a younger age questioning Kohberger and his own ability, and it's probably going to trigger him in some way, right? Now, has Kohberger always been harsh when it comes to marking stuff? Does he have high standards? Is the whole point of being very harsh when grading stuff a mirror of him trying to be a perfectionist? Something to do with his ego, being above others? And when other people hand in something, a report, hand in like an exam paper, whatever, writings, and he looks at it, he's very critical because he's got high standards himself? Or is it just simply because he was going downhill from there, spiraling out of control? Different ways of looking at it, okay? Let's see. Kohberger did not appear to enjoy the debate, says Stinchfield. That doesn't sound good. In quotes, and so we were sort of in this weird like debate for the whole class, 50 of us against one of him. Damn. And he was having to field all these questions. Stinchfield explains, but Bryan didn't seem super comfortable, and honestly, none of us were like super comfortable. It was a weird vibe. Right, so not that I'm saying that this is the catalyst which triggered Kohberger to do what he did, but it probably didn't help. It probably fueled him in a way and angered him further. The debate ended up working out well for the students, according to Stinchfield. That was like a turning point, I think, for us. Stinchfield says we felt like when we did that, our grades got better. Kohberger also seemed distant and a little bit weird, though never to the point where he raised any serious red flags, says Stinchfield. He'd look at the ground when he was up at the front of the class, Stinchfield says, adding that Kohberger never was super engaged with the students. Then, shortly after the murders of the 4 University of Idaho students in the early morning, Kohberger exhibited some notable changes, says Stinchfield. In quotes, later in the semester, like the last time he came was probably a couple weeks before the class ended physically. I remember he looked a little bit more disheveled. He had like some stubble coming on and his hair was a little, messed up or whatever. Nothing like crazy. Stinchfield says, but enough that I remember seeing him and thinking like, oh man, finals must be really getting to him or something like that. So what, saying Kohberger at the time becoming a bit more stressed, not quite looking after himself, distracted by other things, not thinking clearly, losing control, something along the lines of that. Watching it unfold, him unwind, and then leading to what happened. Oh, get off. There were also another surprising change. In quotes, what happened is he started giving everyone just like high marks and not leaving any notes, Stinchfield says. At the time, faculty members at Washington State University were counseling Kohberger following a verbal altercation with a professor he worked for in the school's criminology program, according to a letter obtained by Inside Edition Digital. Right, so from the looks of it here, Kohberger at the time in his current state, going downhill, nothing too personal from what's been worded here, not really targeting anyone specifically within the university, as for like the students. Him suddenly giving everyone a high mark. Why was that? Was that because he just wanted to please people? He felt guilty in some way, guilty for the students and the previous marks, or guilty because of what he's done to other students out there. So what, by giving people good marks, good grades at the time, it was to try and make him feel better or distract him? Or was it because Kohberger was having trouble with the others, like that professor he was working under, just to reduce that noise, that heat level, right? If previous Kohberger had to deal with 50 students having a debate with him, 1v50, when enough noise is created, right, people complaining or saying something is unfair, it might be taken further, and people higher up in the university might take, action in some way, and Kohberger doesn't want that, especially coinciding with what he may have involved himself with the crime from the way it's been worded, right? Him being responsible overall. So, yeah, and normally when you do commit a crime, it's not like you're going to, well, some people do, but most of the time you probably try and keep a low profile or distance yourself from the area, or just do something not to appear too out of the, standing out too much, right? You want to avoid that. Anyway, saying that, receiving counselling, verbal altercation. Verbal, only verbal. But following that counselling, Kohberger allegedly had a second incident with the same professor. In early December, and he lost his job as a teaching assistant. Does it actually explain? In addition to professional blow, Kohberger took a huge financial hit when he lost his job. So he's just losing things bit by bit, possibly losing one's control, possibly losing one's mind, losing one's job. What do you have left? What do you have left? If you refer back to Kohberger, originally in the past, he had troubles with drug usage, using the substance, made him worse off, possible some side effects, but then getting a grip of things, moving forwards, getting involved in the educational system, university, improving oneself, and then now, or more so at the time, that then being stripped away again, back to square one. How do you react, right? Does it exactly reveal a key factor, a key turning point, or like the catalyst which set it all off? No, not yet. Okay, and it doesn't say what the second incident was here with that professor. Was it more physical? I don't know. It doesn't explain. Weird. Anyway, it says teaching assistants in the criminology program at WSU receive a specified stipend each month. Okay, health insurance benefits and an in-state tuition waiver. Out-of-state tuition is waived the first year until the student establishes residency, the university notes on its webpage. Kohberger had already started the process of becoming a resident of the state by obtaining a Washington driver's license, as well as registering his car as recommended by the college. He also registered to vote in the state. It is unclear if Kohberger had made the decision to leave WSU's criminology program before he drove back home to Pennsylvania on December 13th, but search warrants executed at Kohberger's on-campus residence and office both turned up little in the way of evidence, according to authorities. Inside Edition Digital obtained a copy of the letter sent to Kohberger terminating his TA position, which outlined his alleged defences. In quotes, on September 23rd, 2022, you had an altercation with the faculty you support as a TA professor, John Snyder. I met with you on October 3rd to discuss norms of professional behaviour. The letter reads, on October 21st, Professor Schneider emailed you about the ways in which you had failed to meet your expectations as a TA thus far in the semester. It continues, as a result, on November 2nd, Graduate Director Willits and I met with you to discuss an improvement plan, which you agreed to, and I shared with you in an email dated November 3rd. Kohberger met with the faculty, including the professor with whom he allegedly had conflicts and the graduate director on December 7th, to discuss his progress in regards to the improvement plan previously discussed according to the letter. While not perfect, we agreed that there was progress, the letter reads. But then, on December 9th, there was another altercation with Professor Snyder in which it became apparent that you had not made progress regarding professionalism, and about which I wrote to you on December 11th requesting a meeting. The letter reads, we met on December 19th when I informed you of your determination as a TNA for spring semester. TNA? I'm thinking of wrestling then. TA. Kohberger's termination came after he arrived home following a cross-country drive with his father from Washington to Pennsylvania. WSU declined to comment on the investigation on Kohberger's termination, citing privacy laws that prohibit them from speaking publicly about students and alumni. Kohberger is accused of... Yeah, we've seen all that. Yeah, related stories. There you go. So that's Kohberger there. That pretty much sums that up. So what's my thoughts after reading all that? So nothing there from reading that article suggests or supports the idea that Kohberger was set up by somebody else, right? That's what I would say at least. All it was talking about there was before and after how Kohberger was spiralling downhill in some way or another. Behaviour, attitude, focus, confidence shifting, appearance, how he's looking after himself, how he conducts himself, all that type of stuff. No true explanation of what started it all off. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Though the reoccurrence with having trouble with the professor he was around, something going on there, right? Now, what was happening there? I mean, at the end of the day, even if Kohberger had some run-ins, trouble with that professor, with Kohberger supposedly being responsible for the death of those 4 students or so, makes you think that there's not really much of a link there. You know, if Kohberger has been fired from his role as TA, he's had his run-ins with that professor, friction building there, frustration, I guess, because that verbal incident, and the second one, which wasn't really explained, kept quiet. Why then does suddenly Kohberger go over this way and take it on those people over there, if that's the case? Because those people over there are from that university and he wanted to send a message, wanted to get revenge in some way, target certain people so it would hit hard within the community and hit hard with the professor, the professors, and the people who, you know, have higher authority at the university itself. Could be. Is that Kohberger's main motive, if he's the one truly responsible? A form of revenge, taking it out on somebody else, collateral damage for a greater motive of just simply getting revenge and sending shockwaves through, sending a message. Is it just simply down to that and some people are just randomly chosen? Well, I don't think it would be random, considering Kohberger's behaviour online, suggesting that those over there, the 4, well, 3 of them, excluding the male, may have been targeted for other reasons. There's different ways of looking at it, right? But it's interesting with that professor, why was there such friction and tension there? Was it more down to ego, that you've got a professor who's above Kohberger and possibly with knowledge and experience too? Kohberger doesn't quite like that. Kohberger maybe believing that he's equal to the professor or above him or her, whoever. And then that's what causes that friction. could say that Kohberger's possible ego, getting on top of him, acting out in an unnecessary way at times, thinking he's better than other people, even if he is underneath others in terms of roles and positions, then it leads to him being the one that loses out and then gets fired. His own doing, possibly. Yeah? I think the factors, though, of things being taken away from him, even if it was his own fault in the first place, plays one of the roles to which then made him act out in an extreme way and possibly doing something which could ruin the rest of his own life and career. But the position he's in at the time, what else does he have? He's lost most of what he had at the time, so does it really matter? That could be going through his mind at the time, right? Just trying to work back and pick out little factors to see how much of a vital role did it play. Was it a factor which led to the motive? Was it a factor which triggered his action? And then there was a motive by the side. Of course, let me know your thoughts down below. Okay. Speaking of Kohberger's behaviour, we need to look at the next latest article, which is to do with possible alibi coming into play. We'll see what that's all about. I know previously we heard about an alibi being thrown about by the defence team previous, how it could prove his innocence. Well, let's see if it is demonstrated here in the article and get to the bottom of it. Right, here we are. So the title of the article doesn't seem to show in the reader mode, which is a bit stupid, but it's just simply as possibilities that the alibi could be released this week. That's what it's talking about. As when this was posted, it was a few days ago, the 21st of, well, I think it's the 21st of July. Yeah, 21st of July, I believe. Yeah. So what's mentioned here, Bryan Kohberger could reveal new details about his alibi on Monday. Right, so what is it now? Sunday, so tomorrow possibly, depending on time zone difference. Interesting to see. Good fact we continue it now. Kohberger 28 accused of, taking those people out. We skip past some of this stuff because we have read it several times. Kohberger was a graduate student studying criminology. Yeah, we've seen that. What's this? Former attorney Kohberger said his client was eager to be exonerated. Yeah, there's Kohberger. Right, Lieutenant County prosecutors would be seeking death penalty. Yeah. Right, here's the new part. Monday is the deadline for Kohberger's legal team to file an alibi. The first deadline for the alibi was in June, but Kohberger's public defender, Annie Taylor, requested the deadline to be extended on account of not having enough time to review the evidence provided by the prosecution. According to a report by CBS News, Taylor said the evidence includes thousands of pages of discovery, thousands of photographs, hundreds of hours of recordings. On Monday, Kohberger's legal team could file an alibi that would include Kohberger's whereabouts during the murders and any corroborating facts. However, he could not file a response at all, or his legal team could again request more time. Right. Okay. If Kohberger's legal team requests more time, a former FBI agent, Jennifer Confidaffer, doubts the judge will grant it. If that happens, Kohberger's legal team will be required to provide an alibi or not file a response. Confidaffer told Newsweek that she expects Kohberger's defense team to file no response. If the defense had a solid alibi, Confidaffer said they would have likely already presented it. So maybe a form of desperation kicking in, the defence team trying to work with what they've got or little what they have to try and just stretch things out in hopes that they can raise a valid point, but not looking too good for that side in court, right? Confidaffer said if the defence team has an alibi, it could be from witness statements or digital evidence. So the digital evidence, does that have anything to do with the web online activity by Kohberger himself? Maybe? Social media accounts? As for witness statements, that'd be interesting. Why is it taking this long then for witnesses to come out if that was the case? In quotes, we didn't see any of that, Confidaffer said. We see the opposite. Evidence shows that Kohberger's phone was either in airplane mode or turned off on the night of the killings, and a 2015 Hyundai Elantra which is the same vehicle that Kohberger drove at the time, also is identified in the area. I think other people call it a Hyundai. Very hard to prove an alibi when your alibi options prove you were there. Coffindaffer said it would be a jaw-dropping moment if the defence provided an alibi. If an alibi is provided, the prosecution would be granted time to investigate and respond. Is that it? Right, so it's just more of an announcement. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday time, we'll have to see what happens next. So in general, that article was suggesting that Kohberger is kind of in a lose-lose situation, that even if some form of alibi was presented due to the evidence that has already been collected, the phone pings, the data there, as well as his own car being within the area, how do you escape from that? How do you get out of that? What can you say, right? It's a bit of a weird situation. I mean, the only way, the only other possibility, and it's not solid enough, is if you're tying it back to, certain evidence being planted by somebody else to pin the blame on Kohberger, whoever took the knife and knife sheath, right, with the gloves on, may have also stole Kohberger's car, phone. That's the only other way around it, right? But it's just not solid enough at this moment in time. But it was also acknowledged that if for some reason it can be proven his innocence, it'll be jaw-dropping in a sense that, what happens next? That killer's still out there? Where are they? That's a worry to the general public. The other jaw-dropping bit could be the repercussions. Does Kohberger sue? Does Kohberger, follow things up through the legal route for damage caused to himself? How he's been labelled, accused, and wants things to be reinstated back, such as his role at the university or other stuff in between, right? So let me know your thoughts down below, your comments, your questions. I'm sure you'll have your own ideas, right? The form of the alibi floating about. Still waiting for that. We'll see what happens next. Does anyone think it'll be jaw-dropping, or pretty much not much can be provided or explained? What I do want to say is, let's just say that an alibi isn't provided, or it's not a good enough one to prove his innocence, and then they just follow on through. What happens though at the end of the day with the DNA of the 3 other unknown males? Does that just get swept under the bed, ignored about, forgotten, and that's it? Isn't that important as well, to try and come to the bottom and understanding of who were those guys? At what time were they present? Did they play a role? Would Kohberger know? Would Kohberger say anything about seeing other guys present? Makes you think, right? As said, this video could get resistance if people from the Idaho 4 community see this, but I'm just simply doing a theory as it's titled in the video. That's all, not the end of the world, okay? Anything else to add on? I guess it's one thing I've noticed is when it comes to doing different videos, different communities, as for reaching out to them by YouTube themselves, it doesn't seem to work immediately, right? I guess it takes some time. Maybe it's the consistency of covering it in the first place, which then enables people to be informed about those videos who've never seen your channel before. That could be one of the main factors. Said, been covering Dylan Rounds for quite some time, and possibilities of Kenny Veach as well. Okay, probably will have another video coming out later tonight or early hours of the next morning. Okay, just clearing and explaining some in general thoughts. Okay, so be on the lookout for that. But I think for now we'll leave it as it is and await what happens next. If there's any more breaking news, shocking twist, or predicted as other people think. Okay. Thanks for watching, goodbye, and good night for now.